Bild ist noch nicht an. Gut, es ist 11 Uhr.
Well, it's 11 o'clock. I'd like to welcome you all very warmly to this press conference in the run-up to the G7 Development Ministers meeting here in Berlin-Wedding. And I'd like to welcome the host of this meeting, Development Minister Svenja Schulze. And I'd also like to welcome the G20 presidency, Indonesia Minister Monoarfa, the Minister for Development Planning in Indonesia. We'll have simultaneous translation in German and English, so you can select the channel in Zoom. And after the statements, you will also have an opportunity to ask questions, to raise your hand. And if you've joined us virtually, you can also do that by raising your hand. Thank you. Minister. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're currently witnessing a war of aggression that is causing immeasurable suffering in Ukraine. Putin must stop this war. He must end the killing immediately, and he must end the war immediately because it has devastating consequences also elsewhere in the world, in Africa, for example, in the MENA region as well. The war is hitting the breadbasket of Europe. Crops cannot be delivered, and prices surge, and people cannot afford to buy food any longer. So this war of aggression and its global consequences, of course, require all of our attention, or a lot of our attention. But obviously, this doesn't mean that the other major challenges that we're facing have disappeared. Quite on the contrary, the COVID-19 pandemic, global warming, the extinction of species, and social inequalities, it's all still there. The challenges remain, and some of the challenges are mutually reinforcing. Well, in these times, Germany is not just looking towards the east. That's important to me. It's also looking towards the south. So we need to adopt a holistic perspective when looking at the challenges. And we, as G7 development ministers, have planned to adopt this holistic perspective over the next 2 days here in Berlin during our meetings. We'll do it together with colleagues from Indonesia, from India, from the Senegal, and with representatives of the World Bank and the United Nations Development Programme. So it's good that World Bank President David Malpass will be joining us, just as the UNDP Administrator Achim Steiner, and that the Ukrainian Prime Minister Shmyhal will be joining us virtually. I'd like to welcome Suharso Monoarfa. He is by my side, and he's the Minister for National Development and Planning in Indonesia. I'd like to welcome him very warmly. Indonesia currently has the G20 presidency this year. And represented by Minister Monoarfa, he will be attending as a guest and will be participating in the G7 development ministers' discussions. What are the topics we'll be dealing with? Well, food security is the most pressing issue that we want to tackle. The situation on agricultural markets used to be difficult even before Russia started its war of aggression, but the war is dramatically worsening the situation. And if we don't act now, we'll be heading towards the worst famine since the Second World War. I proposed to set up a global alliance for food security that take proactive measures and act swiftly, coordinate measures, and we've received very good feedback from the donors, from our partners, from international organizations, from the African Union as well. I'm very confident that we'll be able to formally institutionalize this alliance as a G7 Development Ministers initiative, and we all agree that support provided to the people needs to go beyond the immediate crisis. So we need sustainable structures on the ground that are resilient and that make the countries effective less dependent on world markets. And climate change is, of course, also having a negative impact. Well, droughts are becoming more frequent, crops fail more frequently, and from East Africa, we're currently witnessing the worst droughts in 4 decades, and millions of people are affected by severe hunger, which means that climate action and achieving a global energy transition is the second priority topic for the G7 development ministers today and tomorrow. And it's really one of the key topics that combines our G7 agenda with the G20's agenda of Indonesia. The Russian war of aggression has made it very clear to us and to others what it means to be dependent on coal, on oil, on gas, and Russia is using energy as a means to exert pressure, and the consequences are price shocks that we're witnessing on the global markets. And the lesson is clear. Renewable energies are the best way to achieve more security of energy and to be immune to blackmail. And I'm confident that this lesson will mean that we'll see a clear acceleration of the global energy transition, because obviously there are the clear climate policy reasons, the obvious reasons, but security policy is another factor that comes in now that really shows that we need an energy transition. And I'm lobbying for a just transition as part of our German G7 presidency, a guiding principle for a global transition towards a socially just and ecological sustainable economy, a climate policy that leaves no one behind. And in international climate policy, all clear rules have now been established. It's now for us to implement them. And we, as economically strong industrialized countries, have a special responsibility to bear, also by assisting developing countries on their path towards climate neutrality. Germany concluded a just energy transition partnership with South Africa at the COP in Glasgow. This partnership will help South Africa phase out of coal and create new jobs for the regions concerned. We want to build on that experience, and during our meeting, we will talk about what we can do together to resolve the immediate challenge that we're facing in the area of climate action. 80% of greenhouse gases are caused by industrialized and emerging economies, which is now we need to enable emerging economies to organize their economic growth in such a way that they still get onto the path towards climate neutrality, which means that the two groups, G7 and G20, play a pivotal role in this regard. And if we work together closely, we stand a good chance of reaching this target, limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And here, the Just Energy Transition Partnerships play a crucial role. And that's also something that we saw at the COP in Glasgow, and with the example of South Africa, with whom we launched the first partnership. So we joined forces with other donors and together launched a major support package for the energy transition. The goal is to achieve further ambitious partnerships with large emitters this year. It's all about concrete and tangible investments. It's about investing in a socially balanced and acceptable coal phase-out. It's about massively and quickly expanding renewables. It's about creating new jobs in the regions affected by the transition or by the transformation. There's no such thing as a blueprint, because challenges differ between countries, which is why we think that it's so important that ambitious emerging and developing companies, our partners, play a leadership role. Partnerships will be clearly aligned with the country-specific needs and priorities. And as a development minister, I will, of course, make sure that our climate partnerships develop great impact, have maximum development impact, for example, by creating decent jobs in green industries of the future. But our partners' needs go beyond the field of climate action and climate protection. Last year, under the British presidency, the G7 Partnership for Infrastructure Investment was launched for low and middle-income countries. So we want to move further ahead with this partnership, and the pandemic has taught us one thing. There's not just a lack of vaccines, there's also a lack of an appropriate health infrastructure, and the same goes for the area of transport, for urban development, for education. So we really need to move forward on major infrastructure projects now by providing support, investment support. And we really want to see a momentum there, a development momentum through this investment. Just look at the African continent. There's a young and a growing generation that needs jobs. And we can't do that. We can't achieve that by continuing at the current pace. We must not lose this generation to autocrats, to extremists who use people's discontent to their political advantage. And a sustainable infrastructure always includes a robust health system that is able to fight pandemics. I'm working with many others on bringing vaccine production to more countries, especially to African countries. And we will be talking about the global efforts to fight the COVID-19 pandemic and other issues of global health with Federal Minister Lauterbach and his counterparts from the G7 countries tomorrow in a joint meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm now pleased to hand over to my colleague, Minister Monoarfa, and he'll be talking about the development policy priorities of the Indonesian G20 presidency. And of course, we're happy to take your questions afterwards. Thank you.
Minister, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Excellency, Ministers Svenja, Schulze, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor for me to attend this press conference today. First of all, I would like to congratulate Germany on its G7 presidency and convening the G7 development ministerial meetings that discuss current issues and challenges in the area of development policies. I also extend my appreciation to Minister Schulze for your kind invitation to Indonesia to participate in the discussion session today. The year 2022 is very important for Indonesia and Germany. It is not only because both countries are respective presidents of G20 and G7, but also because these years mark the 70th anniversary of bilateral relation of both countries. The global economy is now facing a difficult situation with unending COVID-19 pandemic and unequal access to COVID-19 vaccines across the world. The economic recovery remains fragile and uneven as global uncertainty has raised and inflation pressure has increased in many countries. Meanwhile, the economic effect of geopolitical tension is like seismic wave to emanate from the epicenter of an earthquake and spreading to many places. The economic effects are channeled through a commodity market, trade and financial linkages that are seriously threatening the pace of global recovery. At the same time, the food and fuel price increases is hurting lower income households globally. We do need collaborative effort to respond to this challenging world. We need to work together to prevent further economic fragmentation, maintain global liquidity, reduce debt vulnerability, as well as tackle climate change. We need to unite to pass these difficult challenges. Therefore, I would like to put forward our joint effort and call upon G7 through German presidency to support Indonesia's G20 presidency in addressing these world global challenges, which include rising food and energy prices, alarming slow recovery of the world economy, and getting SDGs back on track. Indonesia is committed to address the multidimensional impact of the pandemic and the challenges of recent global economic disruption. In this context, recovery becomes central to the Indonesian G20 presidency with the theme, Recover Together, Recover Stronger. We envision the G20 to be relevant not only for its G20 members, but also for the world, particularly developing countries. To this end, Indonesia's G20 presidency has set 3 priority areas to ensure inclusive recovery. Those are strengthening the global health architecture, digital transformation, and energy transition. Under the G20 presidency, G20 Development Working Group puts forward 4 development priority areas. First is strengthening recovery and resilience in developing countries, least developed countries, and small island developing states by promoting collective action for micro, small, and medium enterprises, adaptive social protection, as well as green and blue economy. We should prioritize our support to the MSMEs in achieving their resilience by promoting sustainable business practices and disaster risk management. To ensure resilience of the community, we promote adaptive social protection to improve our preparedness, mitigation, and adaptation to either pandemic or climate change-related disasters. In the area of green and blue economy, we discuss concrete action to promote economic growth and tackle climate change. These topics are very important, in particular for developing countries, least countries, and small island developing states that are the most prone to the adverse effect of climate change and economic uncertainties. Understanding that energy sectors plays an important role in achieving green economy, we emphasize the strong linkage between a just energy transition and inclusive development with the goal of minimizing undesirable socio-economic consequences and ensuring the achievement of SDGs. Second priority of G20 DWG is scaling up private finance and blended finance instrument implementation. In this context, we encourage more blended finance schemes for investment in developing countries, least developed countries, and small island developing states. Particularly, the prospect of blended finance schemes to build quality infrastructure and narrow the gap of infrastructure investment across developing countries. Third priority is renewing global commitment to international cooperation for sustainable development. In this context, we should put our strong effort to ensure equitable access to vaccine as a prerequisite to achieve the SDGs. And last but not least, as the coordinator of SDGs, the Presidency will provide a report on the G20 contribution to SDGs and our progress in achieving those commitments. G20's Recover Together, Recover Stronger, and G7's Progress Towards an Equitable World has two different lines, but one strong message. Take a great leap forward and ensure no one left behind. We call on G7 to support our endeavor in providing concrete deliverables that are beneficial to every country in the world, particularly developing countries. Being well positioned to foster global development agenda, G7 and G20 should collaborate to achieve a more inclusive growth and accelerate SDGs achievement. Building on this collaboration, we are also happy to invite the G7 development ministers to attend the G20 development ministerial meetings, which will be conducted in Belitung, Indonesia, from 7 to 9 September this year. Please allow me to reiterate that this is the time where our continued collaboration to address global development challenges is utmost needed. Therefore, we look forward to convening with you again in Belitung. I do thank you.
Vielen Dank, Herr Minister. Es gibt jetzt die Gelegenheit für einige Nachfragen. Mit Blick auf die wenigen Minuten, die wir noch haben, würde ich diese Fragen bündeln. Die erste kommt von Christine Joachim von der ARD und danach Holger Möhle. Frau Joachim, bitte.
Ja, vielen Dank. Frau Schulze, die Frage an Sie. Die Deutsche Bahn hat ja jetzt angekündigt, beziehungsweise macht das auch schon, eine Schienenbrücke auf den Weg zu bringen. Das heißt, Getreide und andere Lebensmittelgüter aus der Ukraine weiter nach Europa zu transportieren. 2 bis 3 Züge sollen da pro Tag fahren, über Polen hinaus zu entsprechenden Terminals nach Westeuropa. Wie sinnvoll und wie nützlich ist diese Initiative? Was bringt das grundsätzlich, um tatsächlich Ernährungssicherheit weiter nach vorne zu bringen? Vielen Dank.
Dann die nächste Frage von Holger Möhle vom Bonner Generalanzeiger. Mikrofon bitte. einmal hier hin, in die Mitte. Und wenn Sie im Zoom noch Fragen haben, heben Sie bitte Ihre Hand.
My question goes to both ministers. Russia is member of G20 and Indonesia has the presidency right now. How do you cope with Russia's aggression as it has destroyed international order? So can Russia remain member of G20? And Minister Schulze, will you sit at the same table when your Russian colleague is in the room? Thank you.
So, ich würde Ihnen noch kurz die Gelegenheit geben, im Zoom-Raum Fragen zu stellen. Das sehe ich momentan nicht. Dann Frau Schulze, bitteschön.
Die erste Frage, wenn ich es richtig verstanden habe, ging um die Getreidezüge sozusagen, die jetzt eingesetzt werden sollen, um zu helfen. Alles, was im Moment hilft, das Getreide aus der Ukraine herauszubekommen und wieder dann in die Welt zu bekommen, alles hilft. Die Brücke alleine, also die Brücke über die Züge alleine wird aber nicht reichen, weil wir einfach die Mengen, die wir brauchen und die Ukraine liefern kann, nicht alleine über Züge sozusagen bewerkstelligen können. Es wäre sinnvoll, die Häfen endlich freizugeben, damit das Getreide ausgeliefert werden kann. Das ist im Moment aber nicht der Fall. Deswegen, also das hilft, die Züge helfen. Von den Mengen her wäre es noch besser, wenn die Häfen jetzt endlich wieder freigegeben werden könnten. Zu der Frage G20 und Russland. Ich bin eingeladen zum G20-Entwicklungsminister-Treffen und ich werde dort auch teilnehmen. Und ich denke, dass wir bis September dafür eine Lösung gefunden haben, wie wir mit Russland dann umgehen. Wir haben bei den Weltbanktagungen jetzt Lösungen gehabt und haben mit sehr deutlichen Statements klargemacht, wie wir die Aggression von Russland gegen die Ukraine bewerten. Ich denke, dass wir auch für G20, für die Treffen dort eine Lösung finden. Die allerbeste Lösung wäre, dass bis September der Krieg endlich beendet ist und wir darüber gar nicht mehr sprechen müssen.
Ja, cukup. I think I agree with you.
Dann gibt es
So
noch
there's no
eine
question
weitere
for me.
Frage, die letzte Frage, die wir noch machen können.
Thank you very much. I also have a question for both ministers. For Minister Schulze, do you hope that Indonesia, as part of the G20 presidency, can somehow help to build a bridge between G7 and Russia? And for the Indonesian minister as well, do you think that you, as one of the countries that has been invited by Germany, can also help to somehow build bridges, if that's even possible? Thank you.
Do you like to start?
You.
Okay. Ich starte auf Deutsch. Also, ob die G20-Präsidentschaft Brücken bilden kann. Ich bin fest davon überzeugt, dass eine enge Kooperation zwischen G7 und G20, wie wir sie ja sehen, wie wir sie thematisch sehen, wie wir sie in den gegenseitigen Besuchen sehen, wie wir in den inhaltlichen Übereinstimmungen sehen, dass das sehr hilft. Wir müssen gerade sehr viele Krisen gleichzeitig lösen. Wir haben den Klimawandel, wir haben den Verlust an Biodiversität, Covid ist auf der Welt noch nicht vorbei und jetzt dieser Krieg, der eben auch zu einer großen zu großen Herausforderungen bei den Nahrungsmitteln führt und zu einer großen Ernährungskrise. Das alles müssen wir gemeinsam lösen. Wir fangen hier bei G20 an mit Initiativen, aber das wird in G20 sicherlich weitergehen. Und ja, G20 ist immer auch dafür da gewesen, diplomatische Brücken zu bilden, miteinander ins Gespräch zu kommen. Und ich habe es eben schon mal gesagt, ich wiederhole es, am besten wäre es für uns alle, wenn der Krieg möglichst schnell endet und wir wieder in diplomatische Beziehungen kommen. Kriege müssen am Verhandlungstisch gelöst werden. Und das ist es, was wir ja alle gemeinsam versuchen, Russland dazu zu bewegen, an den Verhandlungstisch zurückzukehren. Dazu dienen auch unsere Sanktionen, die wir ja gemeinsam in der Welt vorangebracht haben. Wir wollen, dass dieser Krieg so schnell es geht aufhört.
Thank you for your question. As I just mentioned that G20's theme is recover together, recover stronger, and G7's progress towards an equitable world. And this is, has two different lines, but there's only one strong message that take a great leap forward and ensure no one left behind. And Indonesia, in this, you just mentioned that you do hope that we can make to bridge the cooperation between G7 and G20. And through this Indonesia presidency in G20, we are continuing to focus on discussing priority issues towards strengthening international cooperation and providing support to build prosperous world together. So, as a presidency G20, we must not lose sight of its main objective, and also I think that G20 as the premier forum for international economic cooperation to address urgent global challenges as pandemic, climate change, and food security. And we are now facing the food and energy crisis, which is the price is increasing, and also to achieving sustainable development goals. I do thank you.
Vielen Dank, Herr Minister. Vielen Dank, Frau Ministerin. Ich darf Sie noch hinweisen, dass es morgen weitere Gelegenheiten geben wird für Fragen. Dann zum Abschluss der G7-Tagung einmal um 12:45 im Roten Rathaus, wo es um die gemeinsame Sitzung mit den GesundheitsministerInnen geht, und dann um 14:30 Uhr im BMZ und auch wieder virtuell insgesamt dann zum Abschluss des G7-Entwicklungsministerinnen-Ministertreffens. Vielen Dank für Ihr Interesse.
Thank you.